His Majesty is not himself today. His Most Unserene Highness, the King of Spain, does not know who or what he is, except that he's not where he belongs. Approach him with caution, he bites. And allow me, if you will, to advise you never to take your eyes off him. Not that you'll want to. As was observed of another stark raving royal, named Hamlet, madness in great ones must not unwatched go. This is especially true when a great one is portrayed by one of the greatest actors on the planet. Uncork the champagne and unfurl the straitjacket. Mark Rylance is once again ruling audiences at the Belasco Theatre, where the strangely enchanting Farinelli and the King, Claire Van Kampen's shimmering fairy tale for grown ups, opened on Sunday night. Mr. Rylance, a three-time Tony winner, and an Oscar and Olivier Award winner, was last seen at the Belasco 4 years ago, during the triumphant residency of the London-based Shakespeare's Globe. At that time, he alternated in the roles of the uncertain Countess Olivia, in Twelfth Night, for whom falling in love becomes an existential crisis, and the demonically assured title character of Richard III. In Farinelli and the King, also a Globe production, he occupies a poignant middle ground between those two Shakespearean archetypes, as a troubled soul who shifts between lyric melancholia and splenetic rage. That's Philippe V of Spain, an early 18th century monarch whose mental health was of great concern to an already unsteady Europe. At this point, you may think the last person you want to spend time with is a crazy, capricious head of state with the power to wage cataclysmic war. But fear not. You are far more likely to see yourself in this sad king, who worries that he is an impostor of the highest order, than any resemblance to a certain contemporary world leader. What's more, unlike the current resident of the White House, Philippe comes to see art as a healing and redemptive force. And with art given sublime voice here by the British countertenor Easton Davies, you are unlikely to argue with the King's belief in its holy transcendence. Mr. Davies does not portray the celebrated countertenor of the play's title, who is recruited to soothe the King's savage breast. Or not exactly. Yes, he appears on stage in full 18th century costume, but only to sing, blissfully, arias by Handel. Farinelli, the young Italian opera star who was castrated at the age of 10 by his musician brother, is affectingly embodied by another, identically dressed actor, Sam Crane. This unconfident man does not feel he produces, much less owns, the exquisite notes that come out of him. That voice, which has made a freak as well as an idol of Farinelli, is somehow something apart. His famous self is its own autonomous being. Such a fission between person and persona is a divide with which Philippe can well identify. Or as the King says to his loving and sorely tried wife, Isabella, a warm and centered melody grove, everything produced in this world has its shadow even at the beginning. When we are taken from the safety of the dark, then are we no longer wholly ourselves, we have been claimed by others. That's quite a mouthful, even for an unself-edited monarch. I didn't entirely absorb that speech's implications about the nature of celebrity and identity when I first heard it. Ms. Van Kampen, a composer and the founding director of theatre music at Shakespeare's Globe, is not by nature a playwright. The language of her script, which combines Shakespearean pastiche with Pirandellian philosophizing and latter-day jokiness, doesn't always flow melodically. But Ms. Van Kampen has an illuminating appreciation not only for period music but also for the gap between artists and their art, and what separates the nimbus of fame from those who are enhaloed by it. She is married to Mr. Rylance, so she should know. The physical production directed by John Dove and designed by Jonathan Fensom provides the ideal frame for such contemplation. The Belasco has been reimagined as a courtly theatre with on-stage seating for audience members, blurring the distinction between public and private performance. That distinction will be further and most charmingly erased at the beginning of the second act. This world is illuminated by the glow of candles, real and extrapolated, by the lighting designer Paul Russell, and a feeling of twilight reverie pervades every scene. The music that emanates from the onstage ensemble, performing on period instruments, matches the sense of a distant age burnished by memory. The look is Once Upon a Time incarnate. When we first meet our storybook king, he is in bed, fishing in a goldfish bowl. As he converses and, implicitly, identifies with the confined creature in the bowl, he seems to belong to the species of charming lunatics who populate the whimsical works of French dramatists like Ennui and Giraudoux. But the pain and anger beneath make this man a danger, even to those he loves. Philippe, the grandson of the grandest king of all, France's Louis XIV, believes everyone is plotting to usurp him. He's not entirely wrong. Those he suspects include his chief minister, Edward Peel, looking like a Hogarth caricature of a desiccated politician, the royal doctor, Hussar Bayat, and even the steadfast Isabella. It is she who introduces Farinelli, who is managed by a hapless English entrepreneur, Colin Hurley, in a classic comic man of the theatre turn, into the court. The king is not initially smitten by this human novelty. And then Farinelli sings. Isabella spoke earlier of being transported by the sound of that voice, and Mr. Davies, improbably, matches her account. That is crucial to our acceptance of the transformation the king will undergo. So is the sight of Mr. Rylance listening to Mr. Davies sing as if he is leaning in, Farinelli marvels later, to hear it more particularly. In the paradoxically plaintive and joyous sound of a castrato's voice channeling Handel's music, the king has glimpsed a paradise beyond his fractious court and his burdened royal self. Trying to create that idyllic vision in the real world, in a rustic outpost in the forest in the second act, is an experiment doomed to failure. But watching Mr. Rylance's Philippe experience Farinelli's voice, we hear what we hears. And an actor and a singer temporarily turn a night at the theatre in an anxious city into an Eden beyond worldly care, all the more precious for its evanescence.